which partnered with the Cannabis Substitution Project about how she credits cannabis with replacing her addiction to opioids. Now, since then, a lot has happened with the Cannabis Substitution Project, including an upcoming court date for the founder and two others. So here with us in studio is the founder of the Cannabis Substitution Project, Neil Magnusen. Neil, hello and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad you could be here. Let's start with you, Neil, because after our interview with Jennifer, you and the CSP, they had an interaction with Vancouver police back in May. So what happened?
Well, they raided us, arrested us, and charged us with selling cannabis without a license and against the Cannabis Act. That was part of a 6-month investigation, apparently, to find out if we were doing that, although we had been very open about doing it right from the start. So that's what that was about.
Where does that leave you?
Well, we've had 2 court appearances where we've set dates, as my other 2 co-accused attempt to get counsel. They're going through legal aid. But there's been really no discussion about, with the prosecution, other than a little bit by me, with respect to, what we were actually doing there. I mean, we responded to a public health emergency 5.5 years ago with this program of ours. We've had nothing but success doing that for all this time. Our issue is that legalization happened. Then we were required to apply for licenses through the federal government, and they've just been delaying and delaying and delaying ever since. Despite having numerous studies released by Dr. M.J. Malloy, who's here with us today, and other people that back up what we're doing. We've proven it and demonstrated it every day for 5.5 years, over half a decade, yet the federal government is still dragging its heels on allowing for low barrier access cannabis, and that's all it is we need to have low cost and no cost cannabis available to people, especially for the opioid crisis, but for all people that are using it for medical reasons or people that can't afford it otherwise.
Okay, well, MJ Malloy, as you point out, is also here with us in studio. But Neil, before we move along to MJ, you've brought someone else with you today. Tell us a little bit about Brian Carlisle.
Yeah, Brian's a fellow that's been a patient for a very long time using cannabis and has a great deal of difficulty accessing what he needs it for. In fact, I think Brian can tell you way better than me about a little bit of his medical stuff going on. He's been one of the longest lived chemo patients in the world, I believe.
Well, I'm glad you were able to come in today, Brian. So tell us how this program has helped you.
Well, for myself and anyone who's terminally ill, having access to medical cannabis is a lifeline. If you don't have it, you can be assured that pharmaceuticals won't last you the long term. I'm in my 21st year on a chemo drug this year. This is called Biktarvy now, and it's obviously devastating many parts of my organs, but still keeping the cancer at bay so I can survive and live a normal life. But without high-level cannabinoids, there's absolutely no way you can do high-level chemotherapy, whether it's drug or radiation. It's just not going to happen.
Okay, and is there anywhere else that you can access this in light of the problems that this organization is facing right now?
Absolutely not. As a legal patient, the supply, according to Health Canada, is grow your own, risk home invasion, which happened to me in 2004. I almost got murdered, or see people or know people like Neil and stay alive. And that's what we've been doing. I'm going on my 21st year, and I've known Neil about 5-6 years now, and I would not be sitting here in this condition, raising a family, married, it's a miracle having these medicinal plants, and this government's choice to go with a non-medical cannabis act for non-medical cannabis users and completely ignoring our medical patients. The only ones that are even technically legal are lard and junkies, and what's that, less than 30,000? The rest of us are just thrown to the wolves. There's millions of us with forms of cancer, and we're all just supposed to pass away, I suppose. I don't think that's right, and I'm sure a judge wouldn't accept that either.
Brian Carlisle is with us today, along with Neil Magnusen. Neil, the founder of the Cannabis Substitution Project. Brian has benefited from that project, as he's just been describing for us. And we have another guest to bring into the conversation. One of the people who replied with an open letter of support of the project, M.J. Malloy, a research scientist at British Columbia Centre on Substance Use, the Canopy Growth Professor of Cannabis Science and Associate Professor in the Department of Medicine at UBC. MJ, hello and welcome to you as well.
Hi, Gloria.
Okay, you've been hearing a little bit about the setup of this conversation. Why do you think an exemption should be made for the cannabis substitution project?
Well, over the last 5 years, me and my colleagues at the BC Centre on Substance Use have really researched cannabis, especially at what role it might be playing in the overdose crisis. And we've learned a number of things, one of which is that many people in the downtown east side, people at the highest risk of overdose, are using cannabis. Over 3/4 of them tell us that they're using it for some sort of medical reason, things like addressing pain or helping sleep. And we have reason to believe that many of these people are able to either reduce or eliminate their contact with the tainted drug supply, the contaminated drug supply, and may therefore be reducing the risk of dying of a fentanyl overdose. We've also learned, unfortunately, that many people don't have any equitable or meaningful access to the legal cannabis system, either the recreational system or the medical system. Quite simply, it's too expensive and there are too many hoops to jump through, especially for folks in the downtown east side who may be homeless or without a credit card.
Now, MJ, what scientific evidence is there that cannabis can be effective when we're talking about replacing more dangerous drugs? This is a different situation than what Brian was describing. When we're talking about dealing specifically with the opioid crisis, that cannabis can be useful. What kind of research is there?
Well, we've published about 24 studies over the last 5 years, which a number of which really show that people, at least some people, appear to be able to either reduce or eliminate their use of things like heroin, crack cocaine, methamphetamine through using cannabis. Now, I'm not going to say that everyone can do this, but certainly we think that there's a substantial proportion of people in the downtown east side who are using cannabis to, take a step back from the contaminated drug supply.
Well, and what have you found is the most effective way to do that?
Well, we really think that it often comes in the context of chronic pain. For example, we found that people who were living with chronic pain in the downtown east side, if they were using cannabis every day, they were far less likely to tell us that they were using fentanyl or other opioids. When we tested their urine, we found that people with THC or with active ingredient for cannabis in their urine were also far less likely to have fentanyl in their urine, suggesting that they are able to successfully avoid fentanyl in the tainted drug supply. These are not conclusive findings, and we're putting together some controlled trials to really come to a conclusive answer, but we're very optimistic that cannabis, at least for some people in the downtown east side, is playing a positive role in their health.
Okay, so Neil, where have you been able to get your cannabis from?
I think first a more important question is about cannabis and its effectiveness and then the way that it's effective. We're not here in our case talking at all really about the smoked cannabis. Other than the concentrates, the higher potency concentrates, just smoking the dried flowers is really not enough to replace or get people through withdrawal from those other drugs. But the high dose edibles really are. And by high dose, I'm talking about anywhere from maybe 30 milligrams up into 150 or 200 milligrams per dose for a person. Of course, someone who's never tried it before should be at the 30 milligram end and not up at the high end, or they're going to have an uncomfortable experience that they're not used to. And in so many cases, that's our biggest problem, is people eat too much, they have an uncomfortable overdose experience with that, not fatal, of course, and then they don't want to try it again. So we caution everybody to start low, to go slow, but it's the edibles because you can eat too much, that's why you can eat enough. That's why you can find enough to replace whatever it is that you're using. It can put you into whatever that state is. Almost everybody using these substances are people dealing with underlying health issues, serious underlying health issues, from mental health issues to physical health issues, and that's primarily why they're stuck on the drugs that they are. But addiction is real primarily because of withdrawal. They can't get off it. Within 8 hours of doing their last dose, they need another one so bad, they're hurting so bad, they got to do whatever they can do to get it. And getting through withdrawal is the big trick. Go to rehab, go to treatment, get through withdrawal. And cannabis high-dose edibles for us has been extremely successful in doing that. We have 268 members. And we haven't increased that number for the last couple of years because that's a very high number of people to be supplying. And 268 people that are members of ours will tell you that cannabis has helped to change their life, save their life, to get them off those other drugs. As for our supply, for the cannabis substitution program, everything is donated. So all of the cannabis that we get is coming from people who are either donating to us from the legal 4 plants that they can grow, or from their medical grow, where they're allowed to grow more plants than that, and they're allowed to donate to us. And it comes in the form, in many cases, of brownies and cookies and gummies and those sorts of things. And so that's where that's all coming from. For the low-cost cannabis, which we feel is also extremely necessary, that's coming from growers that are not licensed by Health Canada but would like to be. Part of our application to Health Canada is that those people who receive licenses, they've been supplying us for, like I say, a half a decade, proven, no harms involved, very, very, very trusted by us. And we're able to test everything that comes in as well. And we've had no issues with that, and Health Canada has no issues with anything to do with the products that we've been putting out there. So we need to have those people licensed. That's Health Canada is one of their two issues with us, is that we're not using all legal supply for what we have right now. And we've also provided other avenues